Yeah, socialist Twitch star Hassan Piker raises $1 million for Palestinian aid. We got a Fox News article, which is crazy. And of course, this is happening as the ground troops are looming in Israel for the ground offensive. So there's that as well. Leftist commentator Hassan Piker has raised more than $1 million for Palestinian medical relief in a matter of days throughout a Twitch campaign. I'm incredibly proud of you guys. Piker told his fans as donations poured in. It's incredible. It's unimaginable. It's ridiculous. This is where this community thrives. More than 1,400 Israeli civilians and soldiers have died since Hamas launched a surprise attack on October 7th. Retaliatory strikes from Israel have killed more than 4,000 Palestinians and injured thousands more. Piker launched a fundraiser about a week ago. Fans raised $180,000 in the first 40 minutes and surpassed the $1 million mark as of Wednesday afternoon. Piker kicked in at least 50,000 according to the Tiltify page. The funds will be split between ANERA, Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, Palestine Red Crescent Society, and medical aid for Palestinians, according to Piker. Piker did not respond to an interview request from Fox News about the fundraiser. A self-described socialist, Hassan Piker is one of the most watched streamers on Twitch. The live streaming service off. I didn't even know that they reached out to me. He previously contributed to the left-leaning news and commentary outlet The Young Turks, which his uncle co-founded. He's been a vocal critic of the colonial apartheid and accuses Israel of imposing on Palestinians. In a recent stream, he unleashed a profanity-laden tirade against justifying Hamas's invasion. Wait, what? Justifying Hamas's invasion. If they fucking subjugated you to an open-air prison your whole fucking life, you're going to break out eventually when you realize that there's no other way to get out of it. Do you think that this happened out of nowhere? Do you think this happened out of thin air? Are you fucking stupid? Do you think the Israeli state was just like peacefully coexisting and these guys came in fucking gliders out of nowhere? That's not a nice way to explain what I was talking about. I never justified it. Analysis is not justification, but of course this is Fox News, so I love that they clip chimp my ass. Took a dig at President Biden. In response, Piker posted on X, damn, we raised $1 million for Palestine. Step your game up, Brandon. Humanitarian funds for Palestinians have been a hot button issue for years, with critics arguing aid will fall into the hands of Hamas. State Department officials previously warned that sending aid to the Gaza Strip could risk benefiting terrorist groups, while also arguing that such a trade-off is necessary for national security. We assess there's a high risk Hamas could potentially derive indirect unintentional benefit from U.S. assistance to Gaza, said the State Department in March 2021. Draft sanctions exemption request obtained by Washington Free Beacon. It is unclear if the warning made it to the final request. On one of his hour-long live streams, Piker acknowledged a great difficulty in getting money into Gaza for obvious reasons and said that the 4 charities selected are heavily scrutinized. Yeah. I mean, that part is true. These are charities that have gotten the blessing of Israel, and have been absolutely vetted. And a good portion of this aid will reach Hamas for paying for their medical supplies. Yeah, nice. I beg you, please do not read the comments. That's great. I'm glad that everyone is everyone's like, wow, Hassan is raising funds for Hamas and justifying their invasion. That's like a wild accusation to make. But what are you going to do? What do you fucking expect from the charlatans over at Fox News, man? What a fucking stupid-ass thing to say. Jesus Christ. Any way necessary that they can, bully you and ridicule you, they take it, you know? It's great. Yeah, sending funds to the Hamas charity. So, even Asmin watched your Piers interview. His chat was depressing. Yeah, I mean, it happens. I think it's like a big deal for a random ass, dumbass Twitch streamer such as myself to go on the fucking Piers Morgan show. So that's probably what it is. I don't know what Asmin's takes were, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I've been eating like shit out here. What is this? Instagram doesn't like your fundraiser? Yeah, Instagram has been fucking wilding out. They've been going crazy. They've definitely been going crazy. They've been doing an insane amount of things that are completely unacceptable. So that's not shocking to me. I think they clarified literally every single person as anyone that has Palestinian in their bio, they tagged as terrorists and then said it was a bug, said it was a oopsie. And it's like, no, it's not a fucking oopsie. Okay? It's 100% not a oopsie. Eye on Palestine previously got their page shuttered in 2021 after Israel's infamous campaign against unarmed protesters. Meta/Facebook seems to be going even farther now. I haven't ever heard of them doing this with screenshots on Messenger before. The Eye on Palestine Instagram is down, and when I tried to share a screenshot of it, Facebook Messenger, on Facebook Messenger, they froze my account. Law is awesome that the world's running by these maniacs. They seem to be blocking links to Hassan's Gaza fundraiser. That's insane. The link goes against the community guidelines. What is it? Support or praise of terrorism, organized crime, or hate groups. Nice. A lot of people can't separate Hamas from Palestinians. It seems to be on purpose or by mistake. It's on purpose. It's on purpose. So, yeah, it's not a mistake. Anyway, I just got a text message. Chris Christie from ABC7 apparently wants to say hi. Says when I commentate over his car chases, his DMs blow up. He does all the car chase reporting, apparently. That's so funny. Can you talk about Fluke not being from Norway once you met him? I mean, I already know he wasn't from Norway. I always knew that he wasn't from Norway. I just like saying Fluke because his name is so Norwegian. But yeah, I don't even know where to begin. There's so much going on. One of your interviews clips is doing the rounds on TikTok.
Hasanabi is analysis.
What is this? Let's fucking do this and then swap it back.
Hasan Piker streams live under the name Hasanabi. His analysis of the Israel-Hamas war has taken a highly critical stance towards Israel and Western media. And he's been calling me out for my coverage.
Because he only cares about Israeli citizens. He does not care about Palestinians as human beings. That's why it's apples to oranges. It's like one side is a human, the other side is a barbaric monster child.
I never said that, obviously. He says that he'd like nothing more than to come onto Uncensored and call me a baboon in a suit to my face. I am a baboon, and he can join me now. I'm joined by Hasan. Hasan, thank you very much indeed for coming on.
I'm trying so hard not to laugh there. I'm glad that they caught that. Bro, I've never... Because, like, I know the situation is, like, serious. And I'm trying to be serious. But he's like... I mean, I was like, why did you bring that up? Like, why would you post your own fucking L, dog? It made me... It was just so silly for him to put that out there. Unironically, I just, like... I don't know. I didn't know what to do there. I was just like, Jesus Christ, fucking guy. Like, openly saying I called him a fucking baboon in a suit. Like, so silly. Alright, maybe you thought your accent was too convincing. I think so. Let me... Oh, God, I've been eating like shit and I have zits now. What the fuck? I never have zits. I'm gonna be eating like shit in a little bit as well. When my room service gets here, because I'm bougie as fuck. I haven't eaten yet today. It's 5 p.m. Meanwhile, you'll be eating the top of the hour ad break if you don't subscribe for $5 or free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Okay. Yeah, the Hasanabi Productions clip did fucking numbers. I saw. But I mean, should we just watch it? Should we just watch the whole thing? I mean, this one was probably the one of the best parts of the entire combo. Hasanabi Clips clipped it and posted it. I posted it on my Instagram as well. Yeah, on another long sea of people thinking that my fucking accounts are me, by the way. Hasanabi Productions gets the goddamn credit. Fucking nuts, but what are you gonna do?
Violence is required for its maintenance.
Okay, listen.
And that violence is frustrating people.
I hear
that
you.
That violence is radicalizing people.
But here's
Hold
my...
on. As far as Israel, as far as what Benjamin Netanyahu has done, as far as the war government, what they have done, Piers, going into Gaza and bombing Gaza and killing 3,480 Palestinians so far in Gaza, 1,000 plus children out of all of those casualties. 22 hospitals being bombed, a bakery, the only remaining intact bakery being bombed yesterday. These are horrifying crimes that you would openly say are horrifying and unjustifiable when Russia does it, but when Israel does it, Israel has a right to defend itself. This is identical to the same talking points that I've heard from every Israeli administration official. It's the same talking points that I've heard from American politicians championing the exact same talking points. It's the same thing that I've heard from everyone else in the media. You might have been against the Iraq war, and you use that, but you're using that for evil, in my opinion, at this point. If you are not sitting here and condemning those acts of war crimes, those acts of violence, those acts of collective punishment.
Yeah, I cooked his ass a little bit there at the end of it. I mean, he was very frustrated by like the whole propaganda stuff. I don't know why he fucking cared about it so goddamn much, but that was like his main point of contention. It seems. It seemed like that was the only thing he gave a shit about. But overall, you know, here, let me just pull it up. I don't know how to fucking. The me calling myself a propagandist is like, I don't really care personally about the like being called a propagandist. I don't care about it because I think it's like, you know, everyone is doing propaganda. That's like I'm more of a, I understand the definition, the dictionary definition of propaganda. But people always make additional negative assertions where it's like it's a bad thing. Propaganda is a bad thing. It's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. It's like, no, it's just like someone who is loudly and proudly advocating for a cause. Okay? It doesn't mean that you spread misinformation or lie. You can do that, and that would be bad and wrong. It's very... So why'd you use it as a propagandist as an insult to him? Because when he does it, he's doing it for a direction that he hides behind the banner of independent journalism. I don't have a problem with being called a propagandist or saying that I am a propagandist or the concept of propaganda in general. The issue is when you are doing propaganda and you are not, making honest assessments, making dishonest assessments oftentimes, or the objective truth that you claim that you care about, okay, and then you act like one side. You only offer coverage and condolences to one side's one side's dead, the casualties on one side, and you justify it for the other side, which is of course the Palestinian side. Like, yeah, you're a bad propagandist, and you are hiding your own personal bias in the matter. I'm also not a journalist. Like, this is not to hide behind it. The whole like I'm a dumb himbo shit. Like, I get that. I know that I have a responsibility in my mind that I want to ensure that you are all perfectly informed and you are not led astray, that you are not misinformed. Okay? And I'm going to give you every aspect of a story and then tell you what my perspective is, which is what I do. I give you IDF sources. I tell you if I don't believe it. I tell you if there's a likelihood that those sources are valid. I give you on-the-ground reporting from OSINT Andes, some of which are fucking literally CIA cutouts anyway, and forensic analysts. And I talk to them behind the scenes as well. It's not a one-sided affair in the way that people try to present it. I am biased in the direction of the emancipation for Palestinian people, as I've said, but that does not mean that I'm going to misinform you willingly, deliberately, and obfuscate the truth. Just like immediately after the rubble was cleared, or when there was a little bit of daylight shed on the impact crater from the Al-Ahli hospital, with the new information, not with what Israel had said, not with what Israel claimed, but with the newfound information, I told you that my assessment is a little bit different. Of course, I still believe that until there is a third-party investigation, that yes, I still believe that the relentless bombing campaign is still happening by Israeli hands, okay? And I also don't believe that, like, in a situation where Israel has killed more than 1,000 children, where they turn around and go, yeah, but like 30 of them, or 30 of those children, or 500 of those casualties in total from the 3,480 thus far were actually Hamas militants like blowing themselves up. I'm like, okay, that's still fucked up. Like, that's still fucked up. But what's the argument? That like when you kill Palestinians, it's okay, but when there's a misfire, then all of a sudden that's the worst kind of killing of Palestinians. Like, they're still dying. They're still dying, just like Israelis died. You know what I mean? This is like unacceptable. It's ridiculous. The more interesting aspect of this was like what I covered already. For example, and I'll use this example really quickly. If you remember, Israel has the Hannibal Protocol, right? Where if they have a hostage situation, they go guns blazing. Like, and sometimes they might actually end up killing the hostage. They claim that they don't. It's not official policy anymore. Okay. But one of the members that survived the massacre at the kibbutz went on Israeli public radio, I think state radio as a matter of fact, and said that most of the people died in the crossfire when the IDF came in and went in guns blazing. Now, does this mean that like you have to have scrutiny for the death toll? Does this mean that it's like IDF's fault? No. In that circumstance, absolutely not. They went in there, guns blazing, because Hamas was there, because they had hostages. Like, it's ridiculous to and I said it back then. I said, look, ultimately it doesn't matter because these people still died. They still died, and it was horrifying. And it's not like the IDF would be there if Palestinian forces were not in that kibbutz. So it doesn't really change anything in the grand scheme of things. So while I still do maintain the position that until I get third-party clarification or some additional smoking gun, evidence that we have yet to see, right? That is pretty conclusive. I am still going to assume that the bombing campaign is being conducted by the guys who have been doing the bombing campaign. You know what I mean? I don't know why you would assume, or that I would assume, I would make the assertion that like the guys that already blew up that hospital, that like blew up the cancer ward with the artillery shell 2 days prior, are not responsible for the upcoming bombing potentially. Anyway, so in this kind of situation, I still have to rely on the ground reporting. It's not like I'm making my own shit up. And I think that the media assessment overall, like the media assessment originally, assuming that it was Israel, was perfectly valid. And I feel crazy that they like had to go back and be like, I'm so sorry for saying that. And they've been getting yelled at non-fucking stop. While it's not like Israel has stopped its bombing campaigns. They've kept it up. And for people who try to point to, yeah, they fucking blew up the courtyard of a church. Like, there's a massive church complex, and they blew up the courtyard, like, literally last night or 2 nights ago. I don't even know. My fucking days and nights are so, they're all mashed into one another, so I might get something wrong here. But ultimately, it blows my mind that I want the truth. Number one, I want the truth. I want the truth of what happened at the Al Ahli hospital. Okay? But this does not change my perspective on what has been going on and what has happened since. Okay? It's, of course, like, I still think that the gruesome bombing campaign conducted by Israel is completely unacceptable. Okay? It's just completely ridiculous. Anyway, so, yeah. Yeah, Justin Amash's fucking relatives died, dude. That's nuts. Like, an American libertarian. Are you realistic? How do you have 20k viewers? Holy crap. Have you seen what Hamas and Palestinian people murdered kids and families in the kibbutz? Have you not seen the videos? You have zero clue what happened. Literally zero stream something else. You're sitting in Vegas with zero knowledge. Weirdo. Yeah, dude. You got it. I was totally oblivious to this. Like, fucking idiot. Of course I know that. I just brought it up earlier. The fuck is wrong with you? Stupid idiot. Jesus Christ. Okay. The obfuscation and the lack of clarity in the hospital bombing at this point is media narratives. It's media narratives, and it's important to arrive at the truth regardless. It's important to make an assessment on every single casualty, every single death, no matter who is responsible for it, okay? Oh shit, my food is here. All right, hold on. Here, let's start with the Piers Morgan.
Well, now the battle of the hearts and minds, traditionally played out through diplomacy and propaganda, is being played out online. My next guest has almost 500 million views for his provocative commentary online, making him hugely influential. Hasan streams live under the name Hasanabi. His analysis of the Israel-Hamas war has taken a highly critical stance towards Israel and Western media, and he's been calling me out for my coverage.
Because he only cares about Israeli citizens. He does not care about Palestinians as human beings. That's why it's apples to oranges. It's like one side is a human, the other side is a barbaric monster child.
I never said that, obviously. He says that he'd like nothing more than to come on to Uncensored and call me a baboon in a suit to my face. Well, here I am, a baboon, and he can join me now. I'm joined by Hasan. Hasan, thank you very much indeed for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Piers. It's very early here in Los Angeles, California, but I'm going to try to do my very best to not do my British accent while I'm here.
Well, I appreciate that. And listen, I appreciate you coming on. Explain to me why you consider me a stenographer for the Israeli government, given that in the last week, I think more than any other host in the world, I have given lengthy platforms to pro-Palestinian voices to articulate that side of the argument.
So I want.
No, I do have to commend you.
I tried to immediately cut in here and just like glaze him up a little bit because I think he does deserve glazing. Okay, I don't think it's like unfair to make this assessment. I think that he has brought up a lot of pro-Palestinian voices, a lot more than anyone else. Now, has he done it to fucking get owned? Has he done it for, clout reasons, right? I don't know. But it doesn't matter because what matters is those voices get heard, and those voices rarely ever get heard in mainstream media. So I think that it's a good thing, and he deserves, I guess, some praise for it. So, yeah, had to give him his flowers there, I guess.
You certainly have had more pro-Palestinian voices than the rest of the British media and certainly the rest of Western media in general. Now, as far as saying that you're a stenographer, I said that journalists are not supposed to be stenographers, and yet when it comes down to it, in most circumstances, in whatever conflict we may be in, there are stenographers for whichever party is aligning with the American State Department and the interests of the West in general. And Israel happens to be the one in this ongoing conflict.
But it's interesting that you...
I didn't want to just say, like, you just say whatever Israel tells you. Because I feel like that can come across, like, that can be used as, like, anti-Semitic. I don't think it is anti-Semitic to say that, but I think in a situation like this, I'm trying to be as cordial and as like clear and coherent with my message as possible. I think years and years and years of being fucking clip chimped have like basically prepared me to ensure that it might come across as like long-winded, but I want to make sure that you can't clip something that just comes across as not what I actually meant and can be used against me, or more importantly, used against the people that I care about, used against like the Palestinian cause. Like these are things that I am afraid of, always.
You call me a propagandist because I want to play you. This was your reaction to when the hospital got bombed.
I'm a propagandist.
Well, no,
for the record.
No, I'm not calling
I'm
you
a
that. I'm just saying, I'm going to play you.
I'm saying I am.
Okay, well then, I want to
I'm saying I am.
I just
before
want to
you even play it.
Okay, I'm going to play the clip. This is your reaction to the bombing of the hospital the other night.
While I was in the process of getting ready for the stream, Israel enacted one of the singular worst strikes they have done thus far, and an Israeli airstrike hit the Al Ahli hospital in Gaza City, where thousands of civilians were seeking medical treatment and shelter from the relentless bombing campaign.
Now, interestingly, when you were saying that, I was coming on air too. And I took a position based probably on 30 years of being a journalist, running major newspapers, working at CNN and others.
I like that this guy is also like, look at my bona fides as like a major journalist. And it's like, bro, you literally hacked into like famous people's phones and shit. Like, isn't he? He's like a paparazzi guy, isn't he? British media, man. I gotta hand it to him though. He is a clever dog. I mean, he's sly. He's slick with it. He is, I will say, he is, like, very good at his job. Like, he's very good at, like, subtly pushing a narrative while simultaneously acting like he's totally above that and maintains the veneer of, like, objective journalism.
Of waiting, of just saying, I think we should just wait and see what has actually happened here, get clarification, see who's actually to blame before we start passing judgment. You raced in to assume, as many people did, by the way, including the New York Times, BBC, mainstream media, and of course most of the Arab world then followed, that this was clearly, indisputably, an Israeli airstrike or missile.
So, the other part of this that I'm frustrated by is when shameless people, Piers doesn't do it as aggressively, but shameless people online will go, hey, you fucked up. 100% conclusively proven that this was not an Israeli airstrike, actually. So you fucked up on that. And you caused all these Muslims to get angry. And now they're like, you know, trying to burn embassies. And it's really interesting because, like, you think that is the only fucking reason? Like, everyone was perfectly chill with 1,000 dead Palestinian children, 3,480 Palestinians murdered by Israeli airstrikes, but then the hospital, that's it? That's the reason why everybody fucking got mad. No, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. That doesn't mean that there wasn't anything else going on. Of course people were fucking frustrated. It's not like they're not protesting now. They still are. You think it's only the fucking the Al Ahli hospital? That's the reason? It's crazy. So there's two fronts here that I'm frustrated by. One, people that say, "Oh, well, it's not certain. It's not certain," and then subtly making it seem like the line of defense that was adopted by the IDF needs to be taken at its word, even though the IDF time and time again has very openly lied to the media about this kind of thing. This exact same thing. They've lied about different bombing campaigns where they were responsible, but then they tried to shift the blame over to Islamic Jihad. They've lied about assassinations by sniper rifle and then tried to shift the responsibility over to the Palestinian brigades in Jenin, and then slowly had to retract both of those without even punishing the people responsible, by the way, because it's not even fucking illegal on their minds.
Hospital. And yet all the evidence now suggests very strongly that it wasn't. That in fact this was a rocket that misfired coming from a terrorist group inside Gaza. So my question for you is this: Why would you?
I wouldn't go that far.
Why would you?
Yeah, he thought he was gonna bully me and be like, "See, you were wrong." I was like, "What are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? This idea that like, oh no, it's done. All evidence points to this not being Israeli." It's like, really? Does it? Why do you never get punished for immediately repeating whatever the fuck the IDF has said? How does that work? Well, I know why, because that's our ally. So even if they sometimes lie to us, it's fine. For those of you watching, in my opinion, this was probably the worst part of the interview. He was cutting me off quite a lot, and he was like pumping me with these clips to drive home a narrative that I'm a misinformation merchant. But I think I did a decent job overall with given the limitations that I had. I mean, obviously it's like early in the morning. I'm like not awake yet, but that's not the main problem here. The main problem is that like I can't really say anything. He just like would you'll see multiple times. I'm like trying to cut in and trying to interrupt, and he would just boulder over it.
You be so certain in what you said before you knew.
Okay. So, first and foremost, before we get started on this conversation, let's understand something very important here. There's no electricity in Gaza. Internet is patchy in Gaza. There's no food in Gaza. There's no water in Gaza. This is all by design. This is because Gaza is under a brutal blockade, a brutal occupation by the Israeli government. Okay? So that plays a role in the fog of war and the misinformation that gets spread. Having said that, however, you made it seem as though there is a certainty that this was 100% not an Israeli airstrike.
No, I didn't.
And instead,
I literally just said it's not a certainty.
Okay, sorry.
I said the evidence is
Then I
increasingly
misunderstood.
pointing to this not being an Israeli airstrike, and that is expert evidence
Okay,
from people who have no skin in the game at all.
Yes. Well, I don't know which expert you're talking about, because I think Channel 4 did a pretty good job. As a matter of fact, I would say Channel 4 did probably the best job so far in analyzing everything that the IDF has said. But the reason why I believed, and I still do believe, that the likelihood is that this was an Israeli bombing campaign wasn't only because of the singular verifiable video, the phone video from the balcony that had all of the markings of an airstrike, the fact that the Israeli Air Force was enacting a bombing campaign in the region at the time.
He did not say that. He in fact said a terrorist rocket. Yeah, I mean, dude, I didn't pick that up. But this is what I mean. That's why I said he's a pretty good fucking...
You made it seem as though there is a certainty that this was 100% not an Israeli airstrike.
No, I didn't.
And instead,
I literally just said it's not a certainty.
Okay, sorry.
I said the
misunderstood
evidence is
Then I
increasingly
misunderstood.
pointing to this not being an Israeli airstrike. All the evidence now suggests very strongly that it wasn't. That in fact this was a rocket that misfired coming from a terrorist group inside Gaza. So,
all right, let's do it. That's crazy. I didn't even realize that until like literally today. Thank you, Austin Ox, for catching that shit. I like that beat. I didn't even realize what was in it. Here you go, blasting it off. See, I wasn't quick on my fucking toes, man. He caught me slipping there. That's kind of fucked up. Anyway, let's keep going.
Time, according to the Al Jazeera live streaming footage that everyone is using but doesn't understand, the fact that the digital media person for the IDF immediately came out and said that this was actually an airstrike that hit a Hamas target, and that he was sad that there were, casualties at the end of the day, but this was a Hamas target and celebrated it. And more importantly, I guess, the fact that this hospital had been bombed by Israel. This hospital had been bombed by Israel on Saturday. 22 hospitals have, as a matter of fact, been bombed by Israel since this last saga in the occupation. And this hospital had been bombed directly by Israel, where the cancer ward was destroyed. Israel has been bombing all of these hospitals. Israel has been calling all of these hospitals to evacuate over and over and over again. The medical professionals at the hospital had been called by the Israeli government the day prior, and everyone on the ground assumes that this is an Israeli airstrike. They are the ones who experienced the situation.
Listen, Hassan,
so when you have
but the
every
truth is,
single,
if you watch the BBC account of all this last night, by their Verify unit, which was specifically set up by the BBC to be completely dispassionate in these investigations. And they reached a pretty clear conclusion based on circumstantial evidence, I'll make that clear, that this would not have been an Israeli airstrike, including, for example, the size of the crater, which bears no relation to the size of craters normally left by Israeli.
So this part sucks because it's like, I agree. The size of the crater is inconsistent with the fucking JDAM. And he knows I agree with him on that. So he's bringing that up. But it's like, but that still doesn't change. Israel has a fucking incredibly diverse array of munitions that they fucking dump into Gaza and elsewhere. So it's very frustrating to just like drop that in there, and I can't even fucking describe it to him and be like, listen, dude, I get that, but there's still plenty of information that is inconsistent with respect to like what the IDF has brought up. They're not a credible actor in this circumstance. And I think one thing that I will always say and always will push, and I've been saying it since day one, if you remember, I said the likelihood is that this is an Israeli airstrike or some kind of Israeli bomb. However, I can be, of course, wrong. What did I say? Day one. I said, if there's a third-party investigation, like from the UN, International Criminal Court, and they find conclusive evidence that this was not a Israeli rocket or an Israeli bomb or Israeli artillery, but instead a Hamas rocket that misfired, then yeah, I'm wrong. This does not change the direction or the reality on the ground. Yeah, I'm wrong in that situation if that is the case. However, what has happened since then? Like 1,000 more people have fucking been murdered since then. Like, what are we talking about? Anyway, Evan Hill highlighted this forensic architecture thread that we're going to be looking at that, in my opinion, did a pretty decent job of like analyzing where the artillery possibly came from, and also the Doppler effect, like the sound forensics as well, looking at like what direction the missile or the whatever the object was, what direction it came from. These are important things to analyze as well. These are audio analysis is genuinely important, and unfortunately it's been devoid of this commentary thus far. So we'll look at all of that. But my point here is that this is a very frustrating conversation to have with someone who claims that they're not one-sided on it, but is literally one-sided. Difference is, not only do I admit that I'm biased, okay, I admit that I'm biased. I'm biased on behalf of Palestinian emancipation. I'm a firm believer that Palestinian emancipation will be the most effective way to ensure permanent security for Israelis as well. The inverse has been demonstrably a failure. Anyway, my point is, yeah, apartheid doesn't work. This would literally make the situation better and create a more livable circumstance for everybody there. But of course I will continue assuming, and I think it's not unjustifiable to make this assumption considering how many fucking places they've bombed since then, that this was the responsibilities bared upon Israel, until there's evidence that is conclusive that shows me that it's not.
Look, my point is, neither of us know for sure. But you took to your airwaves immediately because actually your, I wouldn't even say unconscious bias, your admitted propagandist bias on your part was that you wanted that to be an Israeli airstrike. It suited your narrative. And I would say that that in itself, in its way, is being a stenographer. Well, you know, you accuse me of being a stenographer. I try and be fair and get to the truth.
Yeah, I wanted it to be Israeli airstrike. It's an insane thing to say. Brother, I don't want any airstrikes. The notion that he's like such a good, objective little journalist and then says, you wanted it to be an Israeli airstrike. Like, you're fucking nuts, dude. That is an incredibly dishonest thing to say. But because he's blasting me from 8 different avenues, I can't even fucking hit him on all of the targets.
In your case, I don't think you try to do that. I think you appeal to your audience, appeal to your base, and you don't really care whether the facts are there or not.
This is entirely unfair because you just said circumstantial evidence favors that this was not an Israeli airstrike.
Yeah.
I gave you all of the circumstantial evidence that it does favor that this is an Israeli airstrike. The reason why, however, circumstantial evidence is not enough. And the one thing that I will concede to, because when more information did come out, and no, I do not mean when Israel said that they did not bomb this hospital and it was actually Hamas, and then they turned around and went, never mind, it's not Hamas, it's actually Islamic Jihad. And then they said, we have more evidence coming out in a couple hours. And then the evidence came out, and it turns out it sounded like the phone conversations that they were able to intercept, supposedly, sounded like, by experts at the very least, to be completely false and completely made up.
Yeah, but Hassan, I don't think. Listen, in all honesty, I don't think even as you're saying all this, I think you're a smart guy.
Piers, let me finish.
I think you've looked at all of this, and I think in your heart, you know this was probably.
He's just like. He's like, oh, in your heart, you knew it was not Israel. You knew it was Palestine. Like, that's insane. That's not how you do a conversation, bro.
Not an Israeli airstrike. And I'm just curious why you would, instead of admitting that as facts change,
that is
your
not
opinion
what I'm
changed.
saying. That is not what I'm saying at all.
I don't understand why you would double and treble down when the evidence is pointing the other way.
You're asking me to be on your show. Do you want to talk?
Yes.
If you're asking me to be on your show, and I want to be on the show, thank you so much for having me on your show. Let me explain exactly what I said. And let me explain to you why I think still, to this very moment, until there is a third-party investigation that is concluded by the UN, the International Criminal Court, or specifically a forensic analyst that looks at the situation, is allowed to be on the ground. This is not just my perspective. This is B'Tselem as well, which is an Israeli organization that has also demanded a third-party investigation occur. I am not going to conclusively say that this was not Israel's fault.
I don't expect you to.
Because I just gave you, and not because I'm a propagandist. As far as me being a propagandist goes, everyone is a propagandist. I'm just honest about it. You're a propagandist. We have our biases.
I'm curious who you think I'm a propagandist
honest
for.
About my biases.
Who do you think I'm a propagandist for?
Who do I think you're a propagandist for? Whichever every media person is doing propaganda.
But who for? I've got to be doing it for somebody.
You think it's a bad word? I don't. That's just the difference. This is a semantics
I do. I think it's actually quite a serious charge. Hassan, I think it's a serious charge to level, not as a podcaster, but as a journalist who's broadcasting around the world, who has a reputation, I believe, for being fair and impartial, actually, on these issues.
It's so funny because he doesn't. Like, who the fuck thinks he's like a serious journalist? British people don't like him. It's interesting because, like, the Tories don't really like him either, right? I've never actually met a single person, whether they're from England or any other part of the world, that was like, I'm a big Piers Morgan fan. Yeah. Also, he's a propagandist. He is propagandizing for Israel. He'll make tiny slivers of criticism here and there, but then ultimately, he takes whatever the fuck they say, hook, line, and sinker, and repeat it. One of the greatest examples of this is that he cannot condemn the thousands of people that Israel has killed in this last siege. Okay? He can't do it. That's why he always runs away from it. He goes, oh, well, it's more about proportion. It's more about proportion, which is why Bassam did a really good job when he was like, how many babies? How many babies can be killed? What's the baby to grandma equation? What's the index here? Explain it to me. He was right. Piers can't respond to that because he's a fucking propagandist.
It's quite a charge to just say I'm a stenographer for the Israeli government or I'm a propagandist. I don't think there's any evidence I'm either of those things. I'm curious who you think I'm doing
while
the
we're
propaganda
having this
for.
conversation, 3,000 Piers. While we're having this back and forth, 3,840 Palestinians have been ruthlessly slaughtered in the last incursion into Gaza. I feel like this is an incredibly selfish, self-centered conversation to have. You asked me to be on here. You wanted to hear my perspective. I'm willing to give it to you. I don't want to talk about I don't want to talk about Noam Chomsky style manufacturing consent conversations about how the media is operating in the behest of capital.
You were the guy. Listen, you were the guy that called me.
There are dead people.
Listen, Hassan, I only asked you because you're the guy that called me a propagandist and called me a baboon in a suit. I was curious as to why. You don't want to say who I'm doing the propaganda for. We'll move on. I agree with you. There's a bigger picture here. Let's move on. Let's take a short break. Hassan, let's take a short break. I want to come back. I want to talk to you about what happened on October the 7th. Get your reaction to that. Welcome back. Hassan Piker is.
By the end of it, he was like, I think he didn't give me any breathing room on purpose because he wanted to bully me a little bit. And I think he did a really good job at that, I'll admit. But I'm fucking dying at that point. I'm like, come on, dog. Jesus Christ. My goal, anytime I go in the media, what is my goal? My goal is to get as many talking points out there as possible. I'm trying to deploy talking points. Straight up. I think that's what the most important thing is. There's not a lot of Palestinian voices that get to be on television, okay? And by that I don't mean like directly, literally Palestinian voices, but like voices that are pro-Palestine. Okay? I did the same thing with the BBC. I did the same thing with Piers. When I'm on TV, I'm using that as an opportunity to just say, like, listen, I don't care, you're here, whatever. I want to talk about this side that rarely ever gets heard and rarely gets coverage from this massive audience that you have who is completely unfamiliar with me. By the way, it's insane that this fucking interview in 2 days got 3.1 million views. All right, let's continue.
Hasan,
This is the part where I cook them now. I think I did a really good job in the second part. This was not live. This was pre-recorded. I mean, we had a live conversation back and forth, but it was pre-recorded and then played live on a
I'll
show.
just play you a clip of something that you said about the October 7th terror attacks, and in particular, the attack at the music festival, which killed 260 people.
Look at this guy. You know what shouldn't happen? Killing 260 people at a music festival. No, you're right, man. That just happened on its own because, like, bad guys wanted to do bad things. You're right. Dude, if they subjugated you to a open-air prison your whole life, you're going to break out eventually when you realize that there's no other way to get out of it.
I mean, it sounds to me there, Hasan, that you are in some way saying they had it coming. Were you?
No, I wouldn't say that they had it coming. I think that Michael Brooks used to say, analysis is not justification. And while obviously civilian casualties and horrific barbaric acts that were committed on October 7 are completely unacceptable, the important thing to make sure that it never happens again is to analyze what are the conditions as to how it happened to begin with. And I think Ehud Barak is going to be on in a little bit as well, or maybe he's on before me. Yeah. And I'm almost certain that while he has held the keys to the conversation and held the levers of the power in this conversation in many key and critical points, I would go so far as to say that he is among many others who also recognize that the Bibi Netanyahu administration is responsible. This is not just my assessment. This is 85% of the Israeli population's assessment at the time. This is years and years and years of refusing to negotiate with the Palestinian Authority. Don't take my word for it. Take Bibi Netanyahu's personal word for it. In 2019, in a closed-door conversation with Likud members, he said that if you want to thwart any kind of Palestinian nation state, you must do everything you can to only negotiate with Hamas. We control how high the fire goes. He has given cash to Hamas by way of Qatar. There is no bigger fan of Hamas than Bibi Netanyahu, which I hope one day you can maybe interview, and then you'll ask him to.
No, I actually did interview him a few months ago, and I did actually spell out to him that there have been a lot more Palestinian deaths this year so far, up to the point of the interview, than Israelis, and what he intended to do about it. He said then he didn't believe in collective responsibility.
Quite long-winded replies, though. Yeah, you're right. I should have just been like, hey, man, all of these other people, like, I'm literally using examples, knowing full well that these are people that he will criticize personally. Okay? Shut the fuck up. I know what I'm doing.
Which is now this hot phrase in this whole crisis about whether you would hold all people in Gaza responsible for Hamas. Interesting to see if when they.
Can I ask you a question?
Let me just finish my point. If they do then launch a ground invasion, it'd be interesting to see if they keep to that word. You know, I'm not a defender of what Bibi Netanyahu has been doing in Israel. In the last year, his attack on the credibility and integrity of the Supreme Court, I think, has been a disgrace, and I think it has fractured society in Israel. I also think that it's caused so much social unrest and had such big protests that you could argue it's taken the eye off the ball of the people who should have been defending the border because they've been trying to sort out what's been going on domestically, internally inside Israel. So I think it's a catastrophic failure of intelligence, of security, of defense.
This is a classic take where he's like, trying to say Bibi Netanyahu fucked up. Like, he took my words and tried to make it seem like we're in agreement. Where I want to stress the point that it's not just Netanyahu who's responsible. The apartheid is responsible. anyone who maintains it is responsible. It's not just like, oh, there's political disagreements between Bibi Netanyahu and Ehud Barak. No. Okay? I will give you that opportunity to shit on him, but I will not let you keep it there. I will not let you keep it there because I know the truth. The truth is that this entire project for 75 years has been a death-dealing project. This entire project is responsible. The maintenance of it is violent, which I will get to now. I think it was clear to even normies that he's had his guard up the whole time. Yeah, I think it did a pretty good job
All of
overall.
those things. I'd be amazed, frankly, if Netanyahu survives this. So I'm certainly not here to defend him, even if you do view me as a stenographer for his government. My question for you, I think, is this. Is that I've had a lot of problems trying to get people on the pro-Palestinian side to separate two things. That you can say, as I believe and you believe, that the Palestinians have been maltreated for decades. That the situation where they are effectively, I mean, I don't even call it an occupation because Israelis aren't in Gaza. They pulled out in 2005, but they still control the ability of Gaza.
This is why I call you a propagandist, Piers.
I'm just saying the phraseology is confusing to me because the reality is
there's a delay here,
Israel
too.
exercises control
Did you guys notice
over
that?
people in Gaza. It allows.
Did you guys notice that? Like, because he goes, I wouldn't even call it an occupation. That's when I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is why I call you a propagandist. But that was literally, like, on my end, that was immediate. On the video, it's like way later.
Allows them in and out. It allows them to turn on the tap of water and so on and so on. I get all that. They don't actually live there because they can't live side by side with each other.
That's why it's called an open-air prison.
Right, I don't disagree with...
That's why they call it the world's largest open-air prison.
Yeah, but Hassan, I don't disagree with you. And I have pointed this out for a long time as a journalist. So we don't disagree about the appalling plight of Palestinian people. But the issue comes that if you can't separate that ongoing dispute between Israel and Palestine from the absolutely appalling barbarism of October the 7th, which was on a whole different scale to anything we've seen, where 1,400 people, Holocaust survivors, babies in their cribs, young women taken, tortured, abused, shot, beheaded, it was reported, and so on. If we can't look at that collectively, with a general humanity and agreement that is an absolute atrocity, then there's something wrong with this. And I find that the tribalism on both sides is now so toxic and so frenzied that you get people who literally can't. We've had a bunch of actors, right, signing this statement saying they want a ceasefire in Gaza and calling Israel war criminals and so on. But they don't say a word about the Hamas attacks that precipitated this. And I find that really hard, really hard to accept.
This is where I cook them.
But do you agree with them? If they had said, for example, that October 7 attacks were brutal and massacres occurred, and then they said everything else, that Israel is committing war crimes, would you agree with them?
Okay, here's what I would honestly say about that. Is Israel...
He would not. That's how you know. That's how you know his ass went sideways on that one.
Not allowed to defend itself from the worst terror attack we've seen since 9/11. Is it not allowed to defend itself
it's just odd.
after 1,400 people in Israel are butchered in that way? And the question then, if you assume that they are able to defend themselves, as any free democratic country,
that is the
then
Israeli
the question
State
becomes,
Department line,
Hassan,
that is the IDF's line, that is the line that everyone
Hassan, let me ask you
channeled.
this. It then becomes a question of how can they defend themselves? If their mission now is to...
Come on, dog. The fuck out of here, dude. He's like, Israel has a right to do some defensive war crimes.
To get rid of Hamas, a terror organization that's committed one of the worst acts of terror ever seen. If that is their stated aim, then what they are doing is consistent with that, isn't it?
No. Here's why this is actually an abject failure, and this is not just my perspective on the matter. I'm just a dumb idiot with a Twitch stream who is live reacting to the news and trying to make sense of everything as it's ongoing. I usually have a policy of not covering breaking news, and sometimes that policy is violated. But ultimately, I am not held up by the same journalistic standards, even though I think I do a much better job than most other news outlets in general. So let me just say this really quickly. You said Israel has a right to defend itself. Absolutely zero people think that this is a ridiculous statement. However, how Israel is defending itself is collective punishment. Now, collective punishment in the form of depriving 2.2 million people of electricity, collective punishment in the form of depriving them of water, of food, collective punishment of in the form of 51 people dying in the West Bank, where, you know, there is no Hamas in the West Bank, and yet 51 people have died because in the West Bank, settlers that are occupying Palestinian territory in violation of the international law, settlers who are doing an act of colonial terrorism, and this is not my statement on it, this is international law, that are doing horrifying things by simply just existing there and maintaining the presence with an occupying force in the form of IDF, who is ritualistically humiliating Palestinians in a structure that B'Tselem, an Israeli organization, calls the permit regime, where every waking moment of Palestinians' lives in the West Bank are absolute hell, where they have no legal recourse. 51 Palestinians have died, and that was before the Ramallah protest that happened last night, and the Israeli forces were opening up with live fire on protesters last night. So who knows what that death toll has become? This is all a product of Israel being an apartheid state. This is a violent apartheid state. There is no way to be a peaceful
Hassan,
apartheid
let me ask you
state.
this.
It is a violence. It is a violence required for its maintenance.
Okay, listen.
And that violence is frustrating people.
I hear
that
you.
That violence is radicalizing people.
But here's
Hold on.
as
far as Israel, as far as what Benjamin Netanyahu has done, as far as the war government, what they have done, Piers, going into Gaza and bombing Gaza and killing 3,480 Palestinians so far in Gaza, 1,000 plus children out of all of those casualties, 22 hospitals being bombed, a bakery, the only remaining intact bakery, being bombed yesterday. These are horrifying crimes that you would openly say are horrifying and unjustifiable when Russia does it, but when Israel does it, Israel has a right to defend itself. This is identical to the same talking points that I've heard from every Israeli administration official. It's the same talking points that I've heard from American politicians championing the exact same talking points. It's the same thing that I've heard from everyone else in the media. You might have been against.
This, I think, was a slow bird. A lot of people will say, Hassan, like, why didn't you hit him fast? Why didn't you jab? It's because instead of immediately being like, here's why you're a fucking propagandist, I think it's better for him to say something that I can just point to that immediately lets it simmer and ultimately gets to a point where it gets to a boiling point where I can point to it and be like, dude, I just described these conditions to you. You act like you care about these people, and then you turn around and say the same shit that Israel says. That's propaganda. Okay? Now, the reason why I didn't do that fast, the reason why I didn't start off with that is because if I do that, one, because I'm ADHD and I'm hyper-focusing on all the wrong things. The other reason is because I want to make sure that, like, the conversation keeps going without him just, like, because he has all control. He can do whatever the fuck he wants with this interview. So, I wanted to hit it hard at the end. Why? Because if he gave me breathing room, I cared more about making sure everybody understands what the situation is. Okay? That's why I wanted to just, like, over and over again repeat the conditions on the ground. These are things that people do not hear. If I had jabbed him first, who knows if he'd let me go off for this long. But I think ultimately the interview was supposed to be about whether or not Piers is a propagandist. That's the real reason why he had me on, right? To be like, oh, you called me a baboon in a suit and a propagandist. Well, there it is. I wanted to max out on as many gruesome conditions of Palestinians right now that you're not aware of points to bring up, while also simultaneously tying it up with a fucking nice little bow at the end and sending that package his way to be like, this is how you're a propagandist.
Against the Iraq war, and you use that, but you're using that for evil, in my opinion, at this point. If you are not sitting here and condemning those acts of war crimes, those acts of violence, those acts of collective punishment.
Well, I would say to that I think the death of any child in this conflict is horrific, absolutely horrific. But the question comes down to me that after an act of terror, as we saw on October the 7th, Israel should be able to defend itself and should be able to go after the people that perpetrated that, who live amongst civilians in Gaza deliberately. And the question for me becomes down to what is proportionate.
The question is, the IDF lives among civilians. The IDF literally has mandatory conscription, like everyone has to serve. The IDF's main headquarters are inside of a fucking mall in Tel Aviv. If Hamas dropped the fucking nuke there, everyone would know what's what. That is unacceptable. If Hamas did that, everyone would say, that's the most unacceptable thing that anyone's ever done. Of course, and it would be. It would be fucking gruesome. It would be ridiculous. It would be ruthless. It's crazy. There's so many angles to cover on this, like, proportionate. What's proportionate? What's proportionate? Obviously, it's disproportionate. Obviously, it's unacceptable, okay? It's ridiculous. But you know what? You know why this is, like, ultimately in the hands of Israel? Because they have the power. They have the power. They have the power to shut off the fucking food and the water and the electricity. And they also have the power to not do that. They have the power to consistently occupy Gaza and have this, like, incredibly stringent blockade that stops people in Gaza, 2.2 million of them, from, like, getting access to regular amenities and food, calling that in a monstrous way, in my opinion, putting the Palestinians on a diet. Instead of doing all that, they could just not do that and work towards a peaceful negotiation. Recognize that the Palestinians are human beings that deserve a life, that deserve dignity, that have dreams just like you do. It's fucking ridiculous to obscure every single person living in Gaza by consistently saying, well, you know, they're all Hamas, they're all Hamas, they're all Hamas, they're all Hamas. It's fucking ridiculous. And I didn't end it there. I gave you also my own perspective on how to end this, okay? And here, this is important.
I don't know the answer, Hassan. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what that answer is.
I do know the answer to that. Last night I had Dr. Ofer Kassif, an Israeli Knesset member who was expelled, suspended for 45 days for saying what I believe is the truth. Championing the exact same position of the Haaretz's editorial board. There are a lot of thoughtful people, a lot of formative Holocaust scholars, a lot of historians that all agree on the same point. The reason why violence that even penetrates through the Israeli security blanket that people thought existed, that penetrated through that Iron Dome, the Iron Wall, if you want to call it that, is because of years and years of oppression and years of violence, which is a necessity to maintain an apartheid state. And this has to stop. There's only two ways out of this. Either you engage in full-blown ethnic cleansing, and if you listen to the likes of Smotrich, or if you listen to the likes of Itamar Ben-Gvir, and these very unfavorable, unpopular, far-right figures, if you listen to Netanyahu and his Likud government, they say that they are interested in going in that direction, the ethnic cleansing direction, the ethnic displacement direction, or the only way out of this for a real solution is to move towards peace, to genuinely end the blockade, to end the apartheid, to end the occupation, and create a pathway towards citizenship for all people with a right to return, for all 14 million Palestinians, 5 million of which live under Israeli occupation. It's brutal. And then the rest living in diaspora. These are not unreasonable requests. These are requests that understand the dignity and the humanity of one side and does not simply treat them as their colonial subjects.
Hassan,
and it's the only way to create permanent security and prosperity in the region.
If it was as simple as that.
Yeah, I hear you, but it's not simple. It's like, no, it is. It is not complicated at all. It's that simple. Yeah, you can't be like, but sorry, we can't do it because why? Because like Israelis are not interested in that. Why? Because Palestinians are not interested in that. First of all, you don't know. You don't know what they're interested in. You can look throughout time. At different points in time, the Palestinian understanding of a two-state solution was infinitely more popular. It was. Only over time has this notion that it is impossible to have a two-state solution has become a permanent fixture in Palestinian lives as a consequence of the permanent occupation. Because they look to that peaceful coexistence in the West Bank and they fucking see what that means. That means a permanent security apparatus constantly up their fucking asses, ritualistically humiliating them at checkpoints, robbing them of their humanity on a daily fucking basis. Why? How could they? How could they ever believe that Israel is going to legitimately move towards a two-state solution? After that, he also asked Ehud Barak the proportionate response question, apparently, and he might have went mask off here. Yeah, we'll look at what he had to say too. For the record, I was supposed to go after Ehud Barak, and then I was lied to. They bait and switched my ass. I was like, damn, I'm about to go after Ehud Barak. I got some fucking questions for the big homie here. Anyway, I love that at the end he's like, oh, you peaceful dove. You do not know that at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break. You simply do not know. It's more complicated than that. Here's a 3-minute ad break now, okay?
I'm sure that would have happened already. I would say this. I agree with a lot of what...
It's so dumb. Oh, well, hey, good solution, man. It would have happened if it could have. Like, get the fuck out of here. No, it wouldn't have. Every single Israeli government official has literally utilized the two-state solution as a way to consistently expand in the Palestinian territory. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Are we blind to the reality? What the fuck's up? They always use Hamas, too, as a reason. It's like, even before Hamas, man. Was Hamas around in 1948? Was it Hamas in 1967? 73? Where the fuck was Hamas then? Hamas hasn't been around for all that long and wasn't even violent in its inception either. As we covered, the history of what it is. It's always been a fucking Islamist fundamentalist group, but not popular. Wonder why it maintained it gained popularity. Wonder how that happened. If you want to take away Hamas and its power, you have to starve it. And the only way to starve it of its power is by letting people breathe. That's it.
What you've just said, not all of it, a lot of it. I don't think you can ever achieve peace now with Hamas controlling Gaza. I don't think you can achieve peace with Netanyahu in charge of Israel, actually, after. I don't think his own people will want him to be in charge of Israel down the line when they examine exactly how this happened. But we will see. But Hassan, I've got to leave it there. Look, it's good to talk to you. You know, you're an important, influential voice to a lot of people. And I think we have a lot of common ground, and there are some things that we disagree
No, we don't.
about. But I suspect it's not as much as you think. You know, I do think that the core problem here has got to get resolved in a way that's been completely ignored for decades. And until it gets resolved, until the plight of the Palestinian people...
This is why journalism is so silly. Like, people being like, I'm just a journalist is so fucking stupid. Because it's like, bro, you just said it's simply impossible. And you asked the question about what is proportional. What is a proportional response? Well, at that point, it's like, you're not really leaving anything out on the table, are you? You're basically saying Palestinians need to suck it, okay? And that, you know, there is no peaceful solution. And the only alternative, like I mentioned, is ethnic cleansing as the final solution. And it's ridiculous to me that he's just doing that while also claiming that he's neutral on the subject. He's like, oh, I want it. I want it so bad. I want there to be liberation so bad for the Palestinians. But also, it would have happened if it could. Well, it didn't. So what the fuck is up there? All right, let's listen to what Ehud Barak. I heard that he asked him questions about me as well. Fuck, how do I fix this? Fuck.
Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. I want to start by playing you an extract from an interview I did with Prime Minister Netanyahu back in March, in the middle of all the big social unrest in Israel over his attempts to usurp the power of the Supreme Court. Listen to this.
We don't believe in collective punishment. I go after the terrorists. I go after those who support.
Cap. Come on, dog.
But I don't believe in collective
It's Cap in America time.
It seems to me part of Netanyahu's problem has been that for political expediency, he's had to pack his cabinet full of very hard right people.
Yeah, he had to do
whose
that.
incendiary rhetoric has done nothing but fuel a lot of fury amongst the Palestinian people. Would you agree with that?
You know, the nomination of these two racist, messianic, we call it in Yiddish, Michiganers, is a grave mistake of Netanyahu. They are a pariah within the Israeli society, but it has nothing to do with the crisis we are now facing. The barbarian massacre that happened in October 7th started to be prepared before Netanyahu government, more than a year ago, before Netanyahu government was ever established, and it has nothing to do whatsoever. They are huge damage to Israel in more than one way, but they are not the direct cause of this event and these attacks.
When you heard about the scale of what happened on October the 7th, how did that affect you personally? You've been a Prime Minister of Israel, you've been a general in the Defense Force. What was the personal impact on you?
Look, I witnessed our people. It was the most severe blow that Israel suffered since its establishment. We had never such an event where within 24 hours, it's much more than 1,400, probably we'll end up with 1,800, and several hundreds were caught as hostages, they were slaughtered, literally. It's not just a terror, it's a crime against humanity. No one can remember such pictures since probably Eastern Europe during World War II under the Nazi rule. And that, of course, it shocked the public, but we are a defiant species. We know how to unite when we face an external threat. We are united. We mobilize over 300,000 reservists to make sure there is enough force to avoid any kind of further surprise and to be able to have a major offensive in the Gaza Strip. We got support from the whole world. Prime Minister Sunak is now in Israel, but Biden was there yesterday. Aircraft carrier is closing even some British vessels, and we enjoy a lot of support. And the third element, which is very important, in a way, it's not just a failure of the intelligence, a failure of the operational side, and in spite of heroic response of the soldiers on the ground, it's still a major failure of our defense system, but it's also a major failure of the political level, and basically they lost the trust of the people, and both the government and in a way the military. And an important step was the creation some 4 days ago of a war cabinet made of Netanyahu and other 4 people. 2 of them were added from the opposition leaders.
That's crazy. It doesn't seem like he's cutting him off or being like, hey, do you think it's proportionate? Do you think the violence is proportionate?
Gantz and Eisenkot, they both are career generals before they turned into politicians. Both were commanders of the armed forces of Israel, and both are very responsible, cool-headed balanced people. So in a way, they're joining the war cabinet, make more citizens, including myself, more quiet about the decisions that might come out and translated by the armed forces into action.
If this attack had happened on your watch as Prime Minister, would you have resigned?
It depends to what extent I would feel the situation. I don't want to answer it right now because there is the question, of course, on the air in regard to Netanyahu. I think that now we have to focus first and foremost on response. We have to do something. No modern state can afford having it. You mentioned earlier 9/11.
Yeah.
You think in the terms of the population, it's like Americans having 9/11 with 50,000 people killed, not 35.
Okay, but considering the Palestinian population is 5 million, or 2.2 million in Gaza, you're doing them. If we're doing 9/11 as a unit of evil, like as a metric for evil, 9/11 math already is insane. But Israel killed the equivalent of 254,402 children. I did the math. Just the children alone, which is 1,500. How many fucking 9/11s is that? It's just so dumb. Anytime, this is something to always consider. Anytime. Oh, Asman's take on the only way out. I don't know why you want me to watch Asman's take on this. But let's see. What did he say?
Which I do think that there will be no resolution to this until one of them does not exist. They will never be able to live peacefully. It will never happen until one of them is totally wiped out. There's not going to be a peace treaty. They're not going to work it out. No.
They say that they are interested in going in that
direction. It's been like 3,000 years. Well, I mean, to be fair, Israel's kind of like a new thing.
What? No, it's not 3,000 years. What the fuck? I swear to God, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind, dude. God damn it. I'm so fucking mad at that dipshit Elise or whatever. Don't fucking send me this shit, dude. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you sending me that? Do you want me to fucking yell? Is that why you're sending me that? So I fucking say something? And then all of the fucking orders lip chimp it, and then we just like fucking have unnecessary drama? It's so stupid. Some of y'all are horny as fuck, dog. Jesus Christ, you're so fucking horny.
Damn, this guy's good.